Warning: this experiment handles boiling sulfuric acid. This must be performed with gloves outside or in a fume hood. Greetings, fellow nerds. In this video, we're going to purify sulfuric acid by distillation using the heating mantle we built in a previous video. Now, sulfuric acid can be made in various ways or obtained from some types of drain cleaners, but oftentimes it's not very pure and contains contaminants, particularly water. Now, you can boil it down to remove some of the water, but the most effective way to purify it is to distill it. So let's set up our apparatus. We start with the heating mantle that we built in a previous video. Mine is connected to a variac off camera. Now we get a condenser. Mine is connected to a water supply also off camera. And here is a 100 milliliter round bottom flask filled about halfway with sulfuric acid from drain cleaner. As you can see, it's quite dirty. Remember to clamp it to the stand so there is no chance it will fall over and spill. Now we connect it to the condenser using an elbow joint coated in high temperature grease. At the other end here, we put some beakers to receive our distillate. And we're ready to start distilling. Let me zoom in. First turn on the water flow and then turn on the power. Start on low power and gradually ramp it up until you can see stuff condensing. If you look closely at the acid, you can see it expanding as it heats up. This is why we only fill halfway and not completely, to allow for thermal expansion. Eventually, volatile organics and water should start condensing. The distillate will also have a small amount of acid, but this is rather dilute and not worth saving. We need to collect when the acid concentration is fairly high. A simple way to find out when the acid concentration in the distillate is high enough is to take a small sample and apply it to a tissue. If it's mostly water, then nothing will happen, and the tissue will just get wet. You can discard the distillate you've collected up to that point. Keep running this test and eventually the distillate will burn the tissue. This is a strong indication that we have more acid than water at this point. Change out the receiver and start collecting your acid. Here's a close-up of the tissue with the acid having burned clean through it. Now, while the acid is very concentrated, it's not yet the common 98% concentration that corresponds to azeotropic sulfuric acid. To know when we're at that concentration, pay close attention to the distillate in the receiving beaker. Here is a separate run with smaller beakers for clarity. Anyway, as the acid distills, if the concentration is still increasing, then you'll get these distortions as light refracts to the changing density of the acid. It's best to have a picture or something behind the beaker to easily see this. Now, if you do see these distortions, then change out the receiving beaker. When we've reached 98% pure azeotropic sulfuric acid, then the distillate will be clear and homogeneous without any distortions. This is because the density is now uniform. The acid from here on will be the highest purity you can get by distillation. Just keep going, collecting the clean acid until you have about 20% residue remaining of the dirty acid. I don't recommend going further as the distillation tends to bump and boil uncontrollably when it gets this low, spitting dirty acid over the condenser and into your clean acid. Before it gets that far, turn off the power and let everything cool. And there we have it, purified 98% sulfuric acid. The less pure but still clean acid can be applied to uses where you can tolerate water or where you're going to dilute it anyway. Alternatively, you can add to future distillation runs to get higher purity. Anyway, if you want to test your 98% pure sulfuric acid, a fun thing I like to do is the classic sugar-carbon pillar experiment. Just mix the acid with an equal amount of sugar and wait. Concentrated acid will dehydrate the sugar and convert to carbon that should form a pillar that rises out of the beaker. Anyway, that's how you purify sulfuric acid by distillation. Thanks for watching. In this video, we're going to make a heating mantle.